What's up, fellas? In today's video, we are taking a look at some possible buyout players in the NBA. Buyouts are typically something that ends up being relatively significant as teams like the Nets that have no trade assets or the Lakers that have a really good chance of winning a title add some pretty critical pieces to the end of their benches as a result of teams just buying out other players. So we're going to talk about what a buyout is, why a team would buy out a player, and 7 players that could possibly be relatively significant buyout guys moving forward here as we get closer to the trade deadline. But quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. If you're looking for consistent NBA content, this is a great place to be. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel. And if you enjoy the content, you can leave a like rating on it. It helps get the video out to more people on YouTube. And you can check me out at various socials in the link tree down in the description below. Every single social I had are down there in that link tree. With those things said, let's talk about buyouts. So, an NBA buyout, what purpose does it serve? Well, basically, it's a way for a team to save money. If a guy's on a pretty significant contract, you can buy them out of that deal. You can pay them, a certain amount that's not the full value of their contract, but it releases them from their contract. They can go sign somewhere else and make up their money and, play on a team that is, just much better. So the reason you would buy a player out is, to save a little bit of cash, and you've got other younger guys on the roster that you want to play, and you don't want this guy to just be sulking and sitting on the bench, and you can't really get value out of them via trades. You just buy them out, you prioritize the development of younger players, and typically it's on teams that aren't very good. So with that in mind, here are 7 potential high-impact buyout players for contenders. The first 2 are both on the same team, and they're 2 of the most obvious guys out there right now, and it's Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee. Drummond's on a huge contract for this season. It's an expiring, but that big of a number is difficult to move, and he just doesn't have a ton of value. He's a fine player, but people just don't like Andre Drummond, and I don't blame them. And then JaVale McGee would be the other one. Assuming they can't trade either of those players, which I wouldn't be shocked if they have difficulties trading either of those guys, they would both be pretty, sought after buyout guys because, big man depth can be an issue throughout the league, and most specifically, of course, in Brooklyn. And both of these guys have been pretty heavily rumored to be in Brooklyn. I could easily see the Cavs buying out either of these guys because they've got young bigs they want to play, and they don't want to have to play 2 bigs all the time and run 2-3 zone. It's pretty clear that for the future of the franchise, Jared Allen is the guy at the 5, right? And you got to kind of evaluate him because he's in a contract here as well as a restricted free agent. And there's no point in having Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee just kind of sitting on the bench sulking away while Jared Allen plays all the minutes. I could not think of his name for a minute. So that's like a perfect example of a buyout situation. Is you've got a young guy you want to play. The veteran makes a good amount of money, but they're really not going to play. And you'd rather prioritize the young guys and get a new roster spot as well, so we can add another player to kind of evaluate as well. So I would be on the lookout for those 2 guys. Next up is a guy that's been pretty heavily rumored as a possible trade target. But if, for example, this guy wants to go to a specific team, maybe he could negotiate a buyout rather than a trade if, many trade suitors don't really show up. And that's JJ Redick. Now, this is probably the least likely guy of anybody on the list, in my opinion, to actually be bought out, because I do think that, guys like him that can shoot the ball really well do have significant value in a trade. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does just end up getting traded rather than bought out. But assuming that the trade market isn't all that robust for JJ Redick, maybe he comes to the Pelicans and says, you know what, just buy me out, and that way I can sign wherever I want to go, whether it be Brooklyn, Boston, or Philly. Those are the 3 teams that have been brought up most, the most, because I think he lives in Brooklyn. He has a residence in Brooklyn. So he wants to be back up there in the Northeast. So, maybe that's a guy to possibly take a look at as a buyout player. Now we get to 2 guys again on the same team that I think could, potentially really help some teams, and those are Trevor Ariza and George Hill. Hill more so than Ariza. Ariza looks a little bit washed at this point, but, ideally he can still defend a little bit and shoot a little bit. George Hill is definitely old, but he's still a really good player. He can shoot the ball, he can create, he can defend, and he's just a plug-and-play guy on any team. Any roster in the league, George Hill can come in and play 20 minutes and knock down shots for you and fit in pretty seamlessly as a creator or as a, perimeter shooter guy, and is just a really, really valuable player, as we saw at times, on those Bucks teams. So literally any team in the league would be happy to get George Hill. And again, I'm not convinced that either of those guys have huge trade value, and the Thunder, of course, are a rebuilding team. So as their season starts to go more and more downhill, I wouldn't be surprised to see them possibly be involved in a buyout situation here. Again, any of the guys that I've mentioned at this point, any of the 5 players, I'd be more than happy to see on the Brooklyn Nets. Like any team like that, any team like LA that has limited resources to bring in, extra players at the end of their bench that could possibly be rotation guys in the playoffs. would be more than happy to see any of these players be bought out potentially. And we already kind of talked about the benefits to the team doing the buying out. Next up now, Hassan Whiteside is another big guy that I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge Hassan Whiteside guy. I think he's, basically just a stat stuffer throughout his career. And, maybe the block numbers are great, but he's not a great defender. Like, he's just leaving the weak side open because all he's doing is going for blocks. But he'd be another guy that could possibly be, available on the buyout market if you're someone that's looking for some bench big depth. That would be someone to possibly take a look at. And then last up now is Wayne Ellington, another guy that can really shoot the basketball. He's bounced around to a lot of different teams, but spacing is king, especially in the postseason, as we've learned. And Wayne Ellington is a guy that if he can do anything, he can space the floor. So he would be someone to take a look at that is, had some runs of success, whether that be in Miami or otherwise. He's not going to be a huge impact guy, but if you're a team that just needs another floor spacer and you're struggling to find a guy that you can put on the floor that can make shots around your other stars, Wayne Ellington would be a guy to take a look at. I'm interested to see if there are any names that I'm missing here. If you guys have any other suggestions for buyout players that could have been on this list that I completely forgot about, let me know down in the comment section below. Again, the criteria here are, players that are on teams that aren't great, that probably won't be getting a ton of minutes in the second half of the year as those teams start to prioritize their younger players and are on expiring deals. Everybody on this list is on an expiring contract. Like, you're not going to have like Kevin Love get bought out or Harrison Barnes get bought out. Like, it's typically guys that are on 1-year deals that are going to be free agents at the end of the season anyway, because you have to agree to it. Like, the player and the team have to agree to the buyout. The team can't just be like, hey, you're bought out, goodbye. They have to, have a negotiation about potentially being bought out. And so I would, keep an eye on all these guys. But again, let me know if there are any other suggestions in the comment section of guys you think could potentially be bought out. Among these guys, I think the most likely ones are probably the Oklahoma City guys and the Cleveland ones, because the other ones like Whiteside and Ellington, they're not making a ton of money anyway. So it's not like the team is necessarily saving a ton of money by buying them out. Maybe they'll just keep them or try and trade them. I don't know. And then Redick, I think, holds too much value to be bought out at the moment. I think he's more likely to get traded. Drummond and McGee, I just think the Cavs have too many bigs, and like teams aren't really going to be all that excited about paying literally anything in a trade in exchange for either of those guys. You might as well just buy them out anyway. And then ditto for the Oklahoma City guys. They really don't have a ton of value on the trade market, so teams would probably just convince them, hey, we'll just take them for free. We don't really need to give you 3 second-round picks for George Hill. You know what I mean? So keep an eye on these guys, and again, let me know what your suggestions would be down in the comment section below. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. As I said in the beginning, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you can check out more from me at the boxes on screen, as well as on the channel as a whole. You can sub to the channel, leave a like rating, and check out the various socials at the bottom of the screen in that link tree. With all those things said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.